Gratitude is a myth. Mercy is a weakness. When you ask for help, no one cares about your needs, only their gain. Every request is a transaction. Yet most people make the fatal mistake of forgetting this simple truth. They approach allies, partners, or superiors with appeals to kindness, with stories of struggle, with hopes that gratitude or mercy will motivate action. And then they wonder why doors remain closed, why favors are denied, why their weakness is met not with support, but with contempt. Law 13 rips away the illusion. Never appeal to mercy or gratitude. When asking for help, the only force that compels others is self-interest. You must present your need as an opportunity for them, not a burden. Your words must whisper, "Help me," and you profit. Anything less is begging. Anything less is suicide in the game of power. Consider the dynamics. Gratitude fades faster than ink on paper. Mercy evaporates once the danger passes. But self-interest is eternal. Every man, no matter how noble he claims to be, wakes up in the morning asking, "What do I gain today?" If your request answers that question, you will be heard. If it doesn't, you will be forgotten. History proves this law with merciless clarity. Alliances are forged not from compassion, but from convenience. Kings support rivals not out of friendship, but out of calculation. Corporations merge not because of sentiment, but because profit demands it. Even in families, loyalty holds only when reinforced by shared advantage. Strip away the moral dressing, and you will see. Power flows always toward benefit, never toward pity. Psychologically, this law preys on one of humanity's deepest instincts, the hunger for reward. Our brains are wired to calculate return on investment in every interaction. Even when we act altruistically, we are feeding ego, reputation, or hidden advantage. Gratitude is an emotion. Self-interest is a law of nature. And in the hierarchy of survival, nature always wins. Yet most people misunderstand this and sabotage themselves. They beg, they plead, they remind others of past kindnesses. They whine about fairness. These appeals fall on deaf ears because in the world of power, fairness is irrelevant, mercy is temporary, and gratitude is forgettable. The one language that commands action is self-interest. Speak it fluently, and you will never be ignored. This law also reveals a darker truth. The moment you ask for help, you reveal weakness. And weakness attracts predators. To shield yourself, you must disguise your weakness inside another's strength. Your request cannot be about your need. It must be about their gain. You must frame your problem as their opportunity, your struggle as their victory, your survival as their profit. The brilliance of Law 13 is its paradoxical elegance. You are not asking at all, you are offering. Every plea becomes a deal. Every request becomes a gift. To those you approach, it appears as though you are giving them power, not taking it. And because it flatters their ego and inflates their interest, they will comply. Ignore this law, and you will live at the mercy of others, waiting for scraps of kindness that never come. Master it, and you will transform dependence into leverage. You will turn every request into a bargain, every plea into an irresistible offer. In the chapters to come, we will see how this law played out in history, in the brutal calculations of kings and the cunning maneuvers of statesmen. We will explore why the human brain cannot resist the pull of self-interest. We will dissect modern examples of CEOs, manipulators, and negotiators who mastered this art. And we will warn against the rookie mistakes of those who thought gratitude would save them. Because here is the reality. No one remembers your suffering. No one rewards your honesty. No one is moved by your gratitude. They move only for themselves. And when you understand this, when you stop asking for help as a beggar and start asking as a strategist, You cross the threshold from victim to player. Main historical example. In the late 15th century, Europe was a crucible of ambition. Kingdoms clawed for dominance, wealth, and survival. To the west lay uncharted seas, whispered legends of distant lands, and riches beyond imagination. Into this arena stepped Christopher Columbus, a man with nothing but an audacious dream and an almost suicidal level of persistence. Columbus was no king, no noble, no banker. He was an outsider, an Italian navigator, dismissed by many as a fantasist. Yet he would change history, not because his vision was unique, but because he mastered the essence of Law 13. He learned to cloak his weakness in the garments of other people's self-interest. Columbus's dream was insane by the standards of his age. Sail west across the Atlantic to reach Asia. The distances were uncertain, the maps unreliable, the dangers unimaginable. To most rulers, he was a lunatic asking for a suicide mission. For years, he pitched his idea across Europe. He appealed to kings and queens, dukes, and financiers. At first, he failed because he framed his proposal in terms of his need. He begged for recognition. He spoke of divine inspiration. He promised glory and salvation. But rulers were not swayed by glory alone. They cared for one thing: power. Columbus had to change his approach. He realized that no ruler would fund him out of pity or gratitude. They would only act if they believed it served their interests. So he reframed his dream not as his own, but as theirs. When he approached Ferdinand and Isabella of Spain, Columbus did not simply say, "I need ships. I need money. Help me." That would have been begging. Instead, he promised them an empire. He painted visions of gold, spices, and trade routes that would bypass Muslim-controlled territories. He spoke of planting the Christian flag in lands untouched by the Church, spreading Spain's influence to the ends of the earth. He wasn't asking them to help him. He was offering them a chance to outmaneuver Portugal, to eclipse rivals, to grow richer than any dynasty in Europe. His weakness became their opportunity. At first, Isabella hesitated. The Spanish crown had just completed the Reconquista, expelling the Moors from Granada. Resources were stretched thin. Yet Columbus persisted, and every time he sharpened his appeal. When Isabella worried about cost, Columbus argued the rewards would be infinite. When Ferdinand doubted the risk, Columbus assured him that if he failed, Spain lost little, but if he succeeded, they gained the world. When skeptics mocked him, Columbus framed himself not as a beggar, but as a tool. Use me, and Spain rises. Eventually, his persistence and his framing worked. Spain agreed to fund him, not because they felt sorry for him, not because they admired his passion, but because they saw the promise of profit and power. Columbus sailed west in 1492 with ships financed by Spain's ambition. He did not find Asia. He stumbled into a world unknown to Europeans, lands that would pour unimaginable wealth into Spain and reshape global history. For Columbus, the discovery meant eternal fame. For Spain, it meant centuries of dominance. The Spanish crown had not invested in a man. They had invested in their own supremacy. Columbus's genius was not in navigation alone, but in persuasion. He knew no one would save him out of mercy. He knew gratitude was worthless. He won support because he made his dream their dream. Columbus's story is not about morality. It is about strategy. He tricked monarchs into believing they were not funding a madman, but securing their destiny. He appealed to greed, to rivalry, to religion, not to pity. This is why Law 13 is eternal. Every age, every empire, every boardroom operates on the same logic. If you ask for help by appealing to gratitude, you will be dismissed. If you appeal to self-interest, you become indispensable. Columbus's triumph reveals the brutal truth. The only way to secure help is to make others believe they cannot afford to deny you. Your weakness must be disguised as their opportunity. Your need must be translated into their gain. The ones who understand this turn rejection into empire. The ones who don't remain beggars, ignored by kings. Psychological/strategic mechanism. To understand why Law 13 works with surgical precision, we must strip away illusions and confront the human mind as it truly is. Power does not move through gratitude or mercy, because both are unstable currencies. Gratitude fades, mercy is temporary, but self-interest is permanent. The brain is designed to prioritize gain, and every decision, whether in politics, business, or intimacy, is filtered through that primal calculation. At its root, this law is about survival. For millions of years, human beings competed for resources, food, mates, land, status. The instinct to protect one's own interest is older than civilization itself. Gratitude was useful only insofar as it reinforced alliances that delivered benefit. Mercy existed only as long as it cost nothing. Self-interest, however, determined who lived and who died. It is no surprise that in negotiations, in deals, in pleas for help, people default to asking, "What do I gain by saying yes?" Gratitude fails because memory is weak. Even if someone feels indebted to you today, tomorrow their own needs will outweigh the past. A politician who owes you a favor will forget once a more lucrative offer arrives. A business partner who feels grateful will abandon you when a better deal comes. Gratitude is a story we tell ourselves about loyalty, but in reality, it erodes with time and circumstance. Mercy is even weaker. To rely on mercy is to rely on pity, and pity is poisoned by contempt. When you ask someone to help you out of mercy, you are reminding them of your weakness. You are forcing them to acknowledge their superiority over you. Even if they grant mercy, it is temporary, and it shifts the balance of power against you. You become dependent, marked as fragile, tolerated only until you are no longer useful. Self-interest, by contrast, is irresistible. It bypasses morality, cuts through memory, and anchors itself in survival. When you present your request as an opportunity for profit, status, or advantage, you align your needs with their instincts. You are no longer asking them to step outside their nature. You are inviting them to obey it. This is why kings gave Columbus ships. This is why CEOs fund projects. This is why politicians form alliances with rivals they despise. Self-interest transforms your plea into their desire. The psychology is reinforced by the principle of reciprocal advantage. Humans are more likely to act when they see mutual benefit, because it feels less like giving and more like trading. A request framed as, "Help me because you owe me," feels like a burden. A request framed as, "Help me because you will win too," feels like opportunity. The brain resists the former, but is seduced by the latter. There is also the phenomenon of ego. People are drawn to actions that affirm their identity. If you appeal to gratitude, you are asking them to play the role of savior, which quickly grows tiresome. But if you appeal to their ambition, greed, or vision of themselves as powerful, you reinforce their self-image. You are not only offering material gain, but psychological nourishment. They feel clever, decisive, dominant, all because you crafted your request as a mirror of their desires. This law also exploits a deeper neurological bias, loss aversion. Studies in behavioral economics show that people fear losing something more than they value gaining it. A master strategist frames requests not only in terms of possible benefits, but in terms of losses avoided. Columbus told Ferdinand and Isabella, "If you fund me, you may gain a world. If you do not, Portugal will take it first." He created urgency by making refusal feel like a risk. This principle still drives modern negotiations. The fear of missing out compels faster decisions than the hope of gain. Another mechanism is social validation. When someone helps out of gratitude, it remains private, personal, even fragile. But when someone helps out of self-interest, they can justify their choice publicly. They can explain it to allies, rivals, or shareholders. Self-interest is defendable. Gratitude is not. This makes self-interest the safer path for those in power. They can rationalize their decision as rational strategy, not emotional impulse. From a strategic viewpoint, Law 13 protects you from dependency. If you rely on gratitude, you become a supplicant, chained to another's memory. If you rely on mercy, you become a weakling, forever dependent. But if you rely on self-interest, the relationship becomes transactional, renewable, and balanced by mutual gain. You can renegotiate, expand, or even exit without losing dignity, because the foundation was never pity, it was profit. This is why master politicians never ask for support as a favor. They present alliances as mutually beneficial. It is why shrewd entrepreneurs do not beg for investment with stories of struggle. They present opportunities for growth. It is why manipulative lovers do not ask to be saved. They make their partner believe that saving them increases the partner's own worth. In practice, this mechanism means reframing weakness as leverage. You do not say, "Help me because I cannot survive without you." You say, "Join me," because if you do not, you risk losing what could be yours. You do not say, "Please support me out of kindness." You say, "By supporting me, you advance yourself." It is a subtle shift, but it turns dependency into strategy. Gratitude and mercy are illusions, fleeting, fragile, unpredictable. Self-interest is eternal. It is the compass by which every man, consciously or not, navigates the world. When you appeal to it, you are not asking anyone to betray their nature. You are helping them fulfill it. And that is why this law is so unbreakable. One of the clearest demonstrations of Law 13 comes from Otto von Bismarck, the Iron Chancellor of Germany. Bismarck was a master of alliances, yet he never built them on gratitude. He understood that gratitude between nations was worthless. Instead, he framed every treaty as a way for the other power to advance its own interests. He kept France isolated not by demanding loyalty from allies, but by convincing Russia and Austria that their security depended on Germany. He never begged for help. He sold opportunity. This is why his web of alliances kept Germany secure for decades. The moment those alliances later shifted, it was not betrayal of gratitude, it was the recalibration of self-interest. In modern business, Steve Jobs applied the same principle. When Apple was on the verge of collapse in the late 1990s, Jobs did not go to Microsoft begging for mercy. He knew Bill Gates had no reason to feel gratitude. Instead, Jobs appealed to Gates's self-interest. Investing in Apple would keep antitrust regulators from tearing Microsoft apart. By saving his rival, Gates saved himself. Microsoft poured $150 million into Apple, and Jobs turned that lifeline into Apple's rebirth. It was not kindness, it was calculation. Politics in the United States offers countless examples. Consider Lyndon B. Johnson, who before becoming president was a Senate powerhouse. Johnson never relied on gratitude. He collected favors not by reminding senators of what he had done for them, but by showing how helping him would strengthen their own careers. He could make or break legislation, and he made sure everyone understood that supporting him was not about loyalty. It was about their own survival. Gratitude might fade, but self-interest would keep them aligned. Another illustration can be seen in the mafia underworld. When a young gangster asks a boss for protection, he never appeals to mercy. Instead, he offers loyalty, service, money. He frames his plea as an asset to the boss's empire. "Take me in, and I will make you stronger." A plea for gratitude would be laughed out of the room, or worse, punished. In that world, Self-interest is the only currency, and those who forget it pay in blood. Even in personal relationships, the law applies. Imagine an employee asking for a raise. If he appeals to gratitude, "I've worked here for years. I've been loyal." The boss may nod, but loyalty is cheap. If instead he frames his request in terms of self-interest, "If you invest in me, I'll expand revenue, manage this new client, or prevent turnover," suddenly the request is irresistible. The raise is no longer a favor, it is a profitable move. Across these examples, the pattern is undeniable. Nations ally not from gratitude, but from necessity. Corporations invest not from kindness, but from fear of loss or promise of profit. Politicians grant favors not to repay old debts, but to secure their own future. Even in the smallest interactions, from families to workplaces, people move when their own interest is engaged. Gratitude is a candle in the wind. Self-interest is iron. Beginner mistakes. Most people fail at Law 13 because they misunderstand the true engine of human motivation. They cling to illusions of gratitude, hope for mercy, or beg for loyalty. In doing so, they strip themselves of leverage and broadcast weakness. Let us dissect the most common mistakes and why they are fatal. The first mistake is appealing to gratitude as if it were a permanent force. Beginners believe that if they help someone once, that person will remain loyal forever. But gratitude decays. A favor today is forgotten tomorrow, replaced by new concerns and temptations. The colleague you supported in a crisis may thank you once, but when opportunity comes for him to advance at your expense, he will not hesitate. Those who rely on gratitude inevitably find themselves betrayed, not because people are cruel, but because people are human. Memory is short. Self-interest is eternal. The second mistake is appealing to mercy. Mercy, by its very nature, elevates the giver above the receiver. When you ask for mercy, you admit weakness. You confess inferiority. Even if mercy is granted, it comes at the cost of respect. The person who spared you sees you as lesser, fragile, dependent. And when the day comes that sparing you is no longer useful, they will discard you without hesitation. Mercy is not a foundation for power. It is a leash that reminds others they own you. Another fatal mistake is asking without offering. Beginners often approach powerful people with naked pleas. "Help me, because I need it." This frames the request as a burden. No one wants to carry another's weight without compensation. Such requests inspire irritation, not action. The master strategist knows to frame every ask as an opportunity. "Help me, and you profit." The amateur frames it as a cost. "Help me, and you sacrifice." One approach compels movement, the other guarantees rejection. Closely tied to this is the mistake of moral entitlement. Some people believe they deserve help because of fairness, loyalty, or justice. They remind others of the good they've done in the past, insisting that repayment is owed. But power does not operate on fairness. It operates on advantage. When you demand repayment out of justice, you reveal that you have nothing else to offer. Worse, you risk offending your target, who may resent being reminded of debts. A ruler does not like to be told he owes you. He likes to be told he benefits by helping you now. Another common error is overestimating the value of loyalty. Beginners imagine that their devotion will be rewarded, that years of service will guarantee support when they need it. But loyalty is transactional. It lasts only as long as it aligns with self-interest. A king may value a loyal servant, but if betrayal secures him more power, loyalty dissolves instantly. To lean on loyalty without offering continued advantage is to gamble your future on sentiment, a losing bet. Timing is also a frequent pitfall. Even if a beginner understands the principle of self-interest, he often chooses the wrong moment to make his ask. If the target feels secure and unthreatened, the appeal may be ignored. If the target feels pressured or insulted, the appeal may backfire. Masters wait for the precise moment when the other party is searching for opportunity, afraid of loss, or eager to outmaneuver a rival. Beginners rush in, unprepared, and expose their desperation. A subtle but dangerous mistake is confusing generosity with strategy. Many novices believe that by giving constantly, they will secure lasting gratitude. They flood others with favors, hoping this builds an unbreakable bond. In reality, it breeds expectation and contempt. People become accustomed to generosity. They stop seeing it as extraordinary and begin to see it as obligation. When the giver finally asks for something in return, the recipient feels no gratitude, only annoyance. True generosity must be selective, framed as investment, not charity. Beginners who give endlessly become servants, not strategists. Another error lies in language. Beginners often beg with words that expose weakness. I would be forever grateful. I can't do this without you. Please help me. Such phrases create pity, not respect. They turn the request into a confession of helplessness. The master avoids such language. Instead, he says, if you act with me, you secure this advantage. Supporting me strengthens your position. By joining forces, we both win. The difference is psychological and decisive. Some beginners also reveal too much desperation. They ask for help as though their survival depends on it, laying bare their vulnerability. But in power, desperation is blood in the water. It attracts predators. Instead of giving help, others may exploit your weakness further, extracting more concessions or simply letting you fail to remove a liability. The key is to mask need with opportunity. The more desperate you appear, the less likely you are to be saved. Finally, the greatest beginner mistake is believing that people will act out of goodness. This illusion blinds them to the truth. They mistake smiles for loyalty, kindness for commitment, politeness for sincerity. They do not see that beneath every relationship lies calculation. The master accepts this reality and uses it. The beginner denies it and pays the price. The pattern of failure is clear. Relying on gratitude leads to betrayal. Appealing to mercy earns contempt. Asking without offering earns rejection. Giving endlessly breeds entitlement. Speaking in weakness inspires pity, not respect. Exposing desperation invites exploitation. All stem from one fatal error: believing others care about you more than they care about themselves. In the end, beginners fail because they refuse to face the cold truth of human nature. They cling to illusions of fairness, loyalty, or kindness. Masters strip those illusions away and speak only the language everyone understands: self-interest. Those who learn to do the same are heard. Those who do not are ignored. Actionable tactics. Law 13 is not theory. It is a toolkit. If you master these tactics, every request you make will transform from a burden into an irresistible opportunity. The key principle is always the same. Disguise your weakness inside their gain. Speak not of what you need, but of what they stand to win. The first tactic is the mirror of benefit. Before making any request, map the self-interest of your target. Ask, what do they want most right now? Is it money, reputation, security, dominance? Then craft your appeal as the reflection of that desire. If your boss values efficiency, do not say, I need a raise because I work hard. Say, with more resources, I'll increase output by 30%. The mirror shows them their own ambition, not your plea. The second tactic is the loss frame. People fear losing more than they crave gaining. Frame your request in terms of what they risk if they say no. Columbus did not only promise Spain the riches of Asia, he warned that Portugal might seize them first. In business, you might say, if we don't act now, Our competitor will dominate the market. Loss compels action faster than gain. The third tactic is the Trojan gift. Offer something small before you ask for something larger. By giving first, you create imbalance, but ensure that the imbalance is tilted in their favor once you make your real request. For example, provide valuable insight or an introduction, then ask for funding. Your initial gift makes them feel they are entering an exchange, not granting a favor. This removes the scent of begging and replaces it with negotiation. Another weapon is the alliance frame. Never present your request as one-sided. Phrase it as a partnership. If you support me, we both rise. This shifts perception from dependency to collaboration. The target sees themselves as part of a team, not as a benefactor dragged into your problems. Even if you are weak, framing your request as mutual strength disguises that weakness. Fifth, use the ego stroke. Appeal to their self-image by making them feel clever, powerful, or far-sighted for helping you. A politician asking for funding might say, "Only someone with your vision can see the potential of this project." The donor feels flattered, not exploited. In relationships, you might say, "You've always been the one who believed in me first." The ask becomes validation of their identity. Another key move is the strategic delay. Never ask when your target is distracted, angry, or threatened. Wait for the moment when they are searching for opportunity or vulnerable to fear of loss. The timing of the request often matters more than the content. Masters wait until the hunger is strong. Beginners ask when the appetite is absent. Seventh, employ the future hook. Frame your request as the beginning of a larger reward for them. A startup founder might tell an investor, "If you join now, you'll be at the ground floor of a revolution." A military ally might say, "Support us today, and we will guarantee your dominance tomorrow." The future hook stretches their vision beyond the immediate cost into long-term gain. The eighth tactic is the public justification. Make it easy for your target to explain their support as rational strategy, not emotional weakness. If you frame your request in terms of gratitude, they cannot justify it publicly. But if you frame it as profit, efficiency, or survival, they can defend it to rivals and allies. For instance, by backing this initiative, you'll increase market share by 15%. The logic shields them from criticism, making your request safer to accept. Another tactic is the divide and offer. When dealing with groups, show each faction what they individually gain by supporting you. Never rely on collective gratitude. Split the group's interests and align each with your proposal. Politicians win majorities this way, not by appealing to unity, but by carving up benefits for each interest group. 10th, use the controlled weakness. Reveal just enough vulnerability to make your ask human, but wrap it in their advantage. For example, "We are struggling with distribution, but that's where your network makes you indispensable." The weakness is bait. The advantage is the hook. They feel powerful for solving your problem because in solving it they gain leverage. The 11th tactic is the reciprocity trap. Sometimes you set up your request months in advance. Provide value, favors, or protection. Then, when the time comes, ask not for repayment in gratitude, but for an action that aligns with their own goals. They cannot resist because the balance feels natural. You are not cashing in a debt. You are extending the cycle of mutual gain. 12th, practice the minimal ask. Instead of requesting something enormous at once, break it into small steps. People resist large sacrifices, but comply with incremental requests that feel painless. Each step builds commitment, and eventually they are invested too deeply to pull out. This tactic turns no into a series of small yeses that accumulate into the outcome you wanted from the beginning. 13th, never forget the disguise of altruism. Sometimes you must cloak your appeal in noble language while hiding the selfish calculation beneath. Speak of values, higher causes, or moral missions, but always tie them back to your target's gain. For example, this project will change lives, but it will also secure your legacy. The moral cover makes the selfish appeal more palatable. Finally, use the exit threat. Subtle, not overt. Imply that if they do not support you, someone else will. This introduces competition. No one likes to imagine opportunities slipping away. In negotiations, you might hint, "I'm speaking with other partners as well, but I wanted to bring this to you first." The suggestion of exclusivity provokes urgency. They act not because of your need, but because of their fear of losing advantage. The unifying philosophy behind all these tactics is simple. Never present your request as a cost. Always present it as an investment. Never frame it as dependence. Always frame it as empowerment. If you master this shift in language and perception, you will never beg again. You will deal only in bargains, in exchanges, in offers too tempting to refuse. Those who rely on gratitude or mercy end up ignored, pitied, or despised. Those who master self-interest command attention, secure allies, and turn weakness into leverage. Every time you ask for help, remember, you are not asking them to save you. You are inviting them to profit from you. That is the essence of Law 13. Conclusion. Power is not a contest of kindness. It is not built on gratitude, nor preserved by mercy. Those who believe otherwise wander through life confused, wondering why loyalty crumbles, why allies vanish, why favors go unpaid. The answer is mercilessly simple. People move only when it serves them. Gratitude fades, mercy weakens, but self-interest never sleeps. Christopher Columbus did not beg Spain to save him. He offered them a new empire. Bismarck did not rely on the gratitude of allies. He convinced them their own survival demanded his friendship. Steve Jobs did not receive mercy from Bill Gates. He gave Microsoft a reason to protect itself. The pattern is timeless. Appeals to kindness are fragile. Appeals to interest are unbreakable. The philosophy behind Law 13 is not cynical, it is realistic. To ask for help is to expose a weakness. To survive that exposure, you must cloak it in opportunity. The more you appeal to pity, the more you sink. The more you appeal to interest, the more you rise. Every interaction, every negotiation, every alliance depends on this principle. This law also forces you to look at yourself with brutal clarity. When others come to you promising loyalty, gratitude, or fairness, ask instead, what is in it for them? When you are tempted to grant mercy out of sentiment, remember, once the sentiment passes, you will resent the cost. Do not deceive yourself with noble illusions. Even your own motives, when examined honestly, are rooted in advantage. You help when you gain. You refuse when you don't. To understand others, admit the same about yourself. The mastery of Law 13 is not in speaking selfishness crudely, but in disguising it artfully. You must learn to translate your need into their benefit. Every plea becomes a bargain. Every ask becomes a gift. Every weakness becomes a chance for them to feel strong. That is how you turn dependence into leverage and vulnerability into strategy. The difference between beggars and rulers, between failures and strategists, is this. Beggars wait for kindness. Strategists engineer self-interest. One lives at the mercy of others. The other bends others to his cause. And when history remembers the victors, it never asks whether they were kind or grateful. It asks whether they understood what moved men to act. If you would rise in this world, erase mercy and gratitude from your vocabulary of power. Speak only the language everyone listens to. Advantage. Cloak every weakness inside another's ambition. Make your need appear as their gain. Do this consistently, and you will never be ignored again. You will never beg. You will only bargain. If this breakdown sharpened your perspective, subscribe to this channel, because here, knowledge is not decoration, it is weaponry. Next time, we'll uncover Law 14. Why acting as a friend while working as a spy is one of the deadliest tactics in the arsenal of power. Don't miss it.